Love unfolds like a miracle. The young girl pedaled her bike with carefree abandon, the wind whipping through her hair, when suddenly she collided with a stranger, the world around her shifting in an instant. It was a revelation that shook her to the core. He was a millionaire, and his heart was ensnared by her in a whirlwind of passion. The sun dipped low on the horizon, drenching the quiet streets in a warm, amber hue that whispered secrets of the day's end. Dark clouds gathered ominously on the horizon, heralding the approach of a fierce storm. Sophia clenched her jaw, her legs pumping furiously as she pushed the pedals harder. The ancient chain of her bicycle clanked ominously with every turn, while her breath came in quick, desperate gasps. She lingered in the dimly lit office, the clock ticking away the late hours. Once more, time was slipping away, and with each passing moment, the weight of her mother's concern loomed larger. She had to get home before the shadows deepened and worry took root. And there, in the dimly lit kitchen, Lucas, her little brother, would be waiting for dinner, his eyes filled with anticipation. The wind howled, a fierce force that whipped dust and brittle leaves into a chaotic dance across the pavement. Sophia narrowed her eyes against the blinding light, her grip on the handlebars growing firmer, as if bracing herself for the unknown ahead. The road stretched out before her, almost desolate, with only a handful of solitary figures meandering along the sidewalks, their shadows flickering in the fading light. So close now. Only a handful of blocks remain. Suddenly, a thunderous crash echoed through the air. Her body surged ahead, colliding violently with an unseen barrier, or someone directly in their path. The collision struck like a bolt from the blue, leaving a shockwave in its wake. Her bicycle lurched violently, tipping sideways as she was thrown to the ground. The unforgiving pavement met her with a jarring impact, pain radiating through her hands and knees as they scraped against the harsh concrete. A deep voice, laced with irritation, sliced through the stillness, commanding attention and shifting the atmosphere. "Can you not see? Are you even aware of your surroundings?" Sophia groaned, forcing herself to rise from the earth, her palms ablaze with pain. Yet the sensation barely registered in her mind. She jerked her head up, drawn by the voice, and found herself staring at a man looming over her, meticulously brushing dust from his impeccably tailored suit. He towered above others, his broad shoulders commanding attention, and his sharp features seemed to have been sculpted by an artist, fit for the glossy pages of a magazine. His dark hair, meticulously styled yet tousled from the impact, framed a face that radiated intensity. His piercing blue eyes, narrowed in frustration, bore into Sophia, sending a shiver down her spine. She felt her stomach twist at the intensity of his gaze, but she quickly dismissed the sensation, determined to maintain her composure. Perfect, exactly what I was hoping for. Another arrogant tycoon. With a fierce determination, she clenched her jaw, pushing aside the relentless ache radiating from her knee. Is this for real? There you were, frozen in the heart of the street, surrounded by the pulse of the world around you. Nathaniel arched an eyebrow, a flicker of disdain crossing his face as he regarded the situation before him. As I stepped forward, the world around me began to unfold, each footfall echoing with purpose. You, in stark contrast, were hurtling down the road with reckless abandon, a wild spirit unleashed. Sophia's face twisted into a fierce scowl. My sincerest apologies. It dawned on me, in that moment of chaos, that those clad in their expensive suits seemed to wield an unspoken power, a right-of-way that transcended all else. Nathaniel released a brief, mirthless chuckle, his fingers deftly smoothing the fabric of his jacket, where a subtle tear marred its surface. Incredible. Farewell. Sophia brushed the dust from her jeans, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. Her eyes fell upon her bike, a silent companion in the unfolding adventure. A bent pedal hung precariously, while the chain lay slack, a silent testament to the chaos that had unfolded. Incredible. With a swift motion, she pivoted to face Nathaniel, her arms crossing defiantly over her chest. Thanks for absolutely nothing. Nathaniel's gaze locked onto hers, a silent battle raging within him as he weighed the decision to speak or remain silent. His expression was a mask of intrigue and irritation, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. But Sophia cut him off, not allowing another word to escape his lips. With a fierce determination, she seized her bike, her words a low growl of frustration as she propelled it down the street. Nathaniel stood rooted to the spot, his gaze fixed on her retreating figure, disbelief washing over him as he shook his head slowly. Throughout his life, he had encountered a myriad of individuals, each one either trembling before his formidable power or striving desperately to win his favor. But this girl, she stared into his eyes, unwavering, utterly indifferent to his identity. And for reasons unknown, it captivated him. Unbeknownst to them, this was merely the dawn of an unfolding saga. The apartment was a tight, suffocating space, its walls barely clinging to one another. Yet to Sophia, it pulsed with the warmth of home. The wallpaper hung in tatters, its edges curling like the pages of a forgotten book. The overhead light flickered sporadically, casting eerie shadows that danced across the room. The relentless hum of the ancient refrigerator filled the air, a constant reminder of the passage of time. She had become accustomed to this symphony of decay, each sound a note in the haunting melody of her life. As she crossed the threshold, she hesitated for a moment, then gently pulled the door shut, sealing herself within the shadows of the room. The air was thick with the comforting aroma of herbal tea, intertwined with the subtle, nostalgic scent of aged furniture, creating an atmosphere steeped in history and warmth. In the shadowy embrace of the flickering lamp, her mother lay nestled on the tattered couch, a delicate blanket wrapped around her fragile form. "Mother!" Sophia's voice floated gently through the air as she drew near. Her mother stirred, a faint smile flickering across her lips like a fragile flame in the dark. The door creaked open, revealing the shadows of a home that felt more like a stranger's embrace. "You were home late again?" Sophia dropped her bag with a soft thud and knelt beside her, the air thick with anticipation. The hours slipped away, consumed by the relentless demands of work. "Do you feel any improvement today?" Her mother grasped her hand, the warmth of her touch sending a ripple of comfort through her. "I'm all right, darling. Just feeling a bit weary." Deep down, Sophia felt the undeniable truth lurking beneath the surface, a truth that whispered to her in the quiet moments of doubt. The relentless cough that had haunted her for months showed no signs of retreat, while the mountain of medical bills loomed ever larger, casting a shadow over her every breath. Sophia poured every ounce of her energy into her work, yet it always felt like she was falling short. With a soft murmur, she rose to her feet, the promise of tea hanging in the air like a whispered secret. In the dim light of the room, her 8-year-old brother, Lucas, hunched over a small wooden table, his brow furrowed in concentration as he immersed himself in the pages of a school book. His gaze shot up the moment he caught sight of Sophia, a radiant smile breaking across his face. "Sophia, you won't believe what just happened. Today I earned a gold star on my spelling test, a shining symbol of my hard work and determination." Sophia's fatigue evaporated, giving way to a surge of pride. "Incredible, my friend. I always believed you had it in you." Lucas's smile radiated warmth, but it faltered as his gaze fell upon the raw scrape marring her knee, a sudden wave of worry washing over him. "What transpired?" Sophia flicked her hand away with a dismissive gesture. "A mere mishap, a fleeting moment that would change everything. There's nothing to fear." She kept silent about the arrogant man in the expensive suit, the way his smug demeanor had grated on her nerves. It was inconsequential. What truly mattered was the relentless struggle to keep food on the table, to ensure the electricity flickered to life, and to carve out a path for Lucas, a chance at a future that shimmered with promise, far beyond the shadows of their current reality. She glided into the cramped kitchen, her hands steady as she filled the kettle with water, anticipation crackling in the air. The pantry stood desolate, a haunting reminder of scarcity. A few forlorn canned goods lingered in the shadows. A half loaf of bread lay stale and forgotten, and a solitary pack of instant noodles awaited a desperate hand to bring it to life. She choked down the frustration that surged within her, a tempest brewing beneath the surface. Press on, step by step, embracing each day as it unfolds. As darkness enveloped the world outside, Sophia found herself perched by the window, the soft glow of the city lights flickering like distant stars. Lucas lay peacefully asleep, and her mother's rhythmic breathing filled the room, a soothing backdrop to the restless thoughts swirling in her mind. Beyond her own world, lives unfolded in vibrant contrast, lives like his, the man she had encountered earlier, a fleeting shadow in her reality. They feasted beneath the glow of crystal chandeliers, draped in garments that eclipsed her monthly rent, living a life unburdened by the shadow of financial worry, where the next meal was always a certainty. She held no resentment toward them. She longed, with every fiber of her being, to experience the exhilarating sensation of freedom, to break free from the chains that bound her, to escape the suffocating weight that greeted her each morning, as if the very air conspired to pull her under. Yet, dreams like that held a perilous allure. Hope, a fragile ember, flickered in the depths of her heart, but it was a luxury she could no longer afford. The graceful sign above the shimmering glass doors whispered the name Le Reverie. The name itself resonated with an air of opulence. Sophia let out a slow breath, her fingers tightening around the strap of her weathered bag. Never before had she entered a realm so foreign, nor could she have ever envisioned herself toiling within its enigmatic walls. Through the pristine windows, she caught a glimpse of the enchanting interior, where soft golden lighting bathed the room in warmth. Perfectly set tables adorned with gleaming silverware beckoned, while servers glided across the floor, their movements a dance of effortless grace. She swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a storm cloud ready to burst. Just survive the interview, Sophia. This job is essential for you. With a determined shove, she swung the heavy door wide and crossed the threshold into the unknown. In that instant, a wave of disconnection washed over her. The air was thick with the intoxicating aroma of truffle, the warmth of freshly baked bread, and an elusive fragrance that danced just beyond her grasp. The staff members glided through the shadows with an eerie grace, their uniforms sharp and immaculate, their faces betraying nothing of the secrets they held within. A sleek woman at the front desk cast a discerning glance at Sophia, her expression revealing a distinct lack of admiration for Sophia's unadorned outfit. I've come to claim the server position, Sophia Carter. The woman offered a slight nod, her fingers deftly flipping through the pages of a clipboard, her focus unwavering. Step into the dimly lit hallway, where shadows dance along the walls, beckoning you to venture deeper into the unknown. You will soon be summoned by the manager. With a whispered thank you barely escaping her lips, Sophia set off, her heart racing as she followed the path laid out before her. The hallway stretched before her, its deep mahogany walls whispering secrets of quiet luxury that sent a shiver through her stomach. At the far end of the dimly lit corridor, an office door lingered in a state of suspense, slightly ajar, as if inviting secrets to spill forth. With a steady hand, she rapped twice on the door, the sound echoing in the stillness before she pushed it open and stepped inside. In that moment, time stood still as she became a statue, caught in the grip of an unseen force. Behind the desk, flipping through a file, sat the last person she ever imagined would be there. In the dim light of the evening, a name echoed through the silence. Nathaniel. It lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken stories and untold secrets, waiting for the moment to unfold. Silence enveloped them, a heavy pause stretching between their breaths. Then Nathaniel lifted his gaze, a slow, amused smirk playing on his lips. Ah, the intrigue thickens. He placed the file on the desk, a heavy silence enveloping the room as he leaned back in his chair, the weight of unspoken thoughts pressing down on him. I never thought our paths would cross once more. Sophia's stomach churned with a tumultuous unease. This had to be some twisted prank of fate. Do you truly possess this place? Nathaniel's hands intertwined, his piercing blue eyes locked onto her, dissecting every nuance of her expression. Are you truly taken aback by that? Sophia's jaw tightened, a storm brewing behind her eyes. Indeed, it is true. I imagined you were always lingering in the heart of the streets, just waiting for the moment of impact. Nathaniel's laughter rolled out, a deep, resonant sound that only fueled her irritation further. Your charm remains as captivating as it has always been. Sophia drew in a sharp breath, the air escaping her lungs in a rush. I had no idea this was your place. I arrived solely for the job. Nathaniel tilted his head, a subtle shift that hinted at the intrigue brewing within him. Do you still crave it? Sophia paused, uncertainty gripping her heart. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to turn back, to flee from the darkness that loomed ahead. Yet she found herself unable to do so. Desperation clung to her like a second skin. This job was her lifeline. Desperation clawed at her heart, The need for money was a relentless shadow that loomed over her every thought. With determination coursing through her veins, she steadied herself, lifted her chin, and locked eyes with him, the tension crackling in the air between them. Indeed, Nathaniel's smirk faded into an expression that was nearly impossible to decipher. With a single deliberate nod, he acknowledged the weight of the moment. Then, congratulations, the moment has arrived, and the air is thick with anticipation. Welcome aboard. Sophia's fingers clenched tightly into fists, a storm brewing within her. Excellent. She held a position, but now she found herself bound to serve him. With a fierce determination burning in her heart, she vowed to herself that she would maintain her distance, come what may. With unwavering resolve, Sophia plunged headfirst into her new job, her focus razor-sharp and unyielding. She stepped into the bustling room before dawn, lingering long after the others had left, pouring every ounce of her energy into the relentless grind that defined her days. She mastered the art of balancing multiple trays, honing her ability to foresee customers' desires before they even voiced them. Despite the relentless ache in her feet, she maintained a flawless posture, embodying the grace and resilience of her craft. Above all, she took every possible measure to steer clear of Nathaniel. She was done with his pity. She was resolute, her heart unyielding to the lure of his gaze. Desperation clawed at her insides. She needed a paycheck, and that was the moment everything changed. Initially, Nathaniel honored the space she sought to maintain. He remained a shadow in the bustling restaurant, his gaze fixed on her as she glided through the chaos with an effortless grace, her silence speaking volumes in the charged air between them. Yet, despite Sophia's desperate attempts to fade into the shadows, he saw through her every effort, his gaze piercing the veil she tried to create. She pushed through the fatigue, her determination unwavering, never uttering a word of discontent. She moved through the chaos like a whisper, offering quiet assistance to her colleagues as they struggled under the weight of their tasks. She moved with a silent power, each step a testament to the burdens she bore. The world's weight pressing down on her, yet her resolve remained unbroken, hidden beneath a calm facade. A spark of curiosity ignited within him. It ignited a burning curiosity within him, compelling him to delve deeper into the unknown. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the distance that once separated them began to dissolve. One evening, as Sophia poured wine into a guest's glass, an unsettling familiarity washed over her, a presence lurking just beyond her sight. Nathaniel stood at the edge of the world, the wind whipping through his hair, a storm brewing in the distance. His heart raced with anticipation, each beat echoing the uncharted path ahead. What lay beyond the horizon was a mystery, but he felt the pull of adventure calling him forth, urging him to take that first step into the unknown. He lingered at the bar, his gaze fixed on her, captivated by every subtle movement. She turned away, her silence a heavy curtain that fell between them. Or at least she made an attempt to. In the blink of an eye, a heartbeat later. Your hold is suffocating. Sophia blinked, her gaze lifting slowly. What is happening? Nathaniel's hand swept toward the bottle, cradled in her grasp, a silent invitation to uncover its secrets. The wine, dark and rich, beckoned with an allure that promised secrets, untold, and stories waiting to be uncovered. It feels as if you're poised to unleash a powerful strike, ready to send it crashing toward an unsuspecting target. Let your wrist unwind. Sophia's lips tightened into a resolute line. I possess the art of pouring wine. I possess the art of pouring wine. Nathaniel arched an eyebrow, a flicker of intrigue dancing in his gaze. You possess a remarkable talent, yet there lies an untapped potential waiting to be unleashed. Sophia let out a sharp breath, her frustration palpable in the air. My sincerest apologies. Do millionaires now take it upon themselves to personally train their staff in the art of wine pouring? Nathaniel's lips curled into a sly smirk, a glint of mischief dancing in his eyes. Only those who truly require it. Sophia's fingers clenched around the bottle, her heart racing with anticipation. Just as she was ready to unleash her retort, something unexpected happened. In this moment, here lies the beginning of something extraordinary. Nathaniel's hand moved toward another bottle, and before she could voice her objections, he deftly shifted her wrist with a tender yet firm touch. His touch was a whisper of pressure, yet unyielding, steering her every motion with an unseen force. Sophia's muscles coiled like a spring. In an instant, the world around them dissolved into nothingness. His hands radiated warmth, a comforting presence in the chill of the moment, calm and unwavering. As she stood there, the air thick with anticipation, a delicate fragrance began to weave its way into her senses, tantalizing and elusive, pristine, priceless. He stood there, a figure shrouded in mystery, drawing the gaze of all who passed. The air crackled with unspoken tension, and the world around him faded into a blur, leaving only the weight of his presence. What secrets lay behind those eyes? What stories were etched into the lines of his face? In that moment, he was more than just a man. He was a force of nature, a catalyst for change, and the beginning of an unforgettable journey. Her breath caught in her throat. But then in an instant, Nathaniel recoiled, the air thick with tension. There, in the stillness of the moment, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. With a barely audible whisper, she cast a glance over her shoulder before turning away, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Yet, the smirk on Nathaniel's face remained, a haunting reminder of his confidence. For the first time since she began her journey in this place, she found herself standing her ground, not turning away from him, and in that moment, he deemed it victory. The following weeks unfolded in an eerie, hushed cadence. Nathaniel remained a silent observer of Sophia's work, his presence a constant shadow. He watched intently, his keen eyes catching every detail, and offered his assistance in the most discreet of ways, weaving himself into the fabric of her endeavors, without ever stepping into the spotlight. As a rude customer unleashed his frustration, Nathaniel surged forward, his presence a shield. With a voice that was both calm and unwavering, he swiftly put the man in his place, leaving no room for further confrontation. As she wrestled with the weight of the heavy tray late one evening, she glanced over her shoulder, only to find Nathaniel standing there, his presence calm and steady. Without a word, he reached out and lifted the burden from her hands, his effortless strength a stark contrast to her struggle. As the weight of a long shift settled upon her, fatigue etched across her features, he ensured that a steaming cup of coffee awaited her in the break room, a small beacon of comfort in the midst of her exhaustion. Sophia whispered to herself, convincing her heart that she was strong enough to walk away from it all. Yet, to her surprise, she discovered that she didn't mind as much as she had anticipated. As the last patrons trickled out, and the restaurant dimmed to a hush, Sophia lingered, determined to wipe down the tables one final time before the night surrendered to silence. She pushed herself to the limit, every muscle in her body screaming in protest as fatigue threatened to swallow her whole. With a swift motion, she lowered herself to grasp the tray, her fingers brushing against its cool surface. In an instant, the room began to whirl around her. Her vision swirled into a haze, and just as she tried to regain her balance, her knees gave way beneath her. Just as she was about to collide with the earth, powerful arms enveloped her, halting her descent. Sophia felt the weight of her name, uttered in a tone laced with an unsettling hint of worry, pulling her sharply from the depths of her thoughts. She blinked, her head nestled against a solid chest, the warmth enveloping her like a protective cocoon. The air was thick with the intoxicating aroma of fresh linen intertwined with a hint of cologne, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. In the dim light of the evening, a name echoed through the silence. Nathaniel. It lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken stories and untold secrets, beckoning the curious to uncover the mysteries that surrounded him. His grip was unwavering, fingers firmly clasping her arms as he kept her steady, a silent promise of support in the chaos around them. "You must take a seat now." His voice held a steady resolve, yet beneath the surface, a hint of unease lingered, a whisper of concern threading through his words. Sophia shook her head, a fierce determination igniting within her as she willed herself to rise. "I'm fine." Nathaniel's expression betrayed doubt, his eyes narrowing as uncertainty flickered across his face. "When did you last indulge in a meal?" Sophia parted her lips, hesitation flickering in her eyes before she sealed them shut once more. Nathaniel drew in a breath, releasing it with a sharp hiss. That was the conclusion I reached. Before she could voice her objections, he guided her to a chair, vanishing into the kitchen for a heartbeat before re-emerging with a plate of steaming food. Sophia's eyes burned with intensity as she fixed her gaze on him. I have no need for it. Devour. His voice brooked no dissent. Sophia paused, a flicker of doubt crossing her mind, but the gnawing hunger within her surged forward, overpowering her hesitation. With a swift motion, she sank her teeth into it. Nathaniel sat across from her, his gaze locked onto her every movement as she savored each bite in a heavy silence. For the first time, Sophia caught a glimpse of something unusual flickering in his expression. A whisper of gentleness. Something tangible. For the first time, uncertainty crept into her heart, mingling with the familiar bitterness she had always felt. The weeks that followed were shrouded in an enigmatic tension that Sophia couldn't quite name. Nathaniel seemed to permeate every corner of her life, not in a suffocating manner, but in ways that rendered him utterly impossible to overlook. As she stepped into the office before dawn's light, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee would greet her, a warm cup waiting patiently at her station, a silent promise of the day ahead. Though no one ever confessed to abandoning it, she was acutely aware of the truth. In the midst of the bustling restaurant, he was always there, a silent guardian, slipping in just before she felt the weight of chaos closing in around her. He concealed it well, never allowing her to sense the weight of his strength, never once making her feel small. He stepped in, offering his assistance without hesitation. But the most bizarre twist of all, Sophia found herself surprisingly at ease, far more than she had anticipated. One evening, as she meticulously polished the silverware at the bar, an electric tension filled the air, and she sensed his presence before he uttered a single word. Your relentless drive outshines the efforts of those around you. Her eyes flicked upward, and there he was, Nathaniel, effortlessly poised against the counter, his gaze fixed intently on her. Sophia shrugged, a subtle movement that spoke volumes, her indifference cloaking the storm of thoughts swirling within her mind. I must do this. Nathaniel inclined his head ever so slightly, a flicker of curiosity igniting in his eyes. A flicker of curiosity igniting in his eyes. What could possibly drive one to ask such a profound question? Sophia paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. For if I falter, there will be no one to take my place. A heartbeat of silence hung in the air. Nathaniel remained silent, refraining from challenging her perspective, as if the weight of his unspoken thoughts hung in the air between them. Instead, he uttered words that took her completely by surprise. Sometimes, the weight of the world can feel too heavy to bear alone. Sophia's hand froze in place. In that fleeting instant, their gazes locked, one a piercing blue, the other a warm brown, a striking contrast of sharpness and softness. For the very first time, Sophia allowed herself to wonder. What if he truly meant it? As darkness enveloped the city, the rain poured relentlessly, transforming the streets into a shimmering tapestry of silver. As Sophia lingered to complete the closing duties, the world outside transformed into a tempest. When she finally emerged, the rain lashed down with an unforgiving fury. She let out a low groan, instinctively drawing her thin jacket closer around her, as if it could shield her from the biting chill that seeped into her bones. She stood there, exposed to the elements, realizing with a sinking feeling that she hadn't brought an umbrella. Excellent. Fate had dealt me a cruel hand. Just as she began to weigh her options, a voice she knew all too well echoed from behind her. Let's go. She pivoted, her gaze locking onto Nathaniel, who stood next to his polished black car. The passenger door swung wide in invitation. Sophia paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. I'm fine. Nathaniel's gaze pierced through the air, heavy with unspoken words. Sophia, step inside. She weighed her options, the relentless cold rain seeping through her clothes, each drop a reminder of her fatigue. In that moment, the thought of resistance felt futile, and she surrendered to the inevitable. With a heavy sigh, she slipped into the car, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. Nathaniel slipped inside just after her, sealing the door behind him and banishing the raging storm to the outside world. The silence inside enveloped everything, thick and suffocating, like a warm blanket that pressed down on the senses. The rhythmic patter of raindrops danced against the roof, creating a haunting melody that filled the air with a sense of mystery. Nathaniel extended his hand, flicking the switch to ignite the warmth that enveloped the room. Sophia exhaled deeply, the warmth enveloping her, melting away the chill that clung to her skin. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. Nathaniel's eyes darted toward her, a mysterious glint dancing within their depths. At any moment, the drive unfolded in a hushed serenity, enveloping Sophia in a sense of comfort she had never anticipated. She couldn't help but steal glances at Nathaniel when he was unaware, captivated by the way his hands clutched the steering wheel, and how his jaw tightened ever so slightly, as if he were adrift in a sea of contemplation. And what of Nathaniel? He was utterly captivated by the girl beside him, her gaze fixed on the rain as it cascaded down the window. The soft contours of her face seemed to glow in the dim light of the car, enhancing her beauty in a way that made it impossible for him to look away. So breathtakingly beautiful. With a sharp exhale, he tightened his grip on the wheel, tension coiling within him. What in the world was happening to him? As they arrived at her apartment, the relentless rain continued to pour, drenching the world in a somber haze. Sophia paused, her fingers tightening around the door handle. "I must leave now." Nathaniel nodded, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Yet the doors remained firmly locked. She pivoted towards him, her brow furrowed in discontent. "Nathaniel?" His expression was a mask, concealing the tempest of thoughts swirling beneath the surface. Pause for just a moment. Sophia's eyes fluttered open, a moment of confusion washing over her. "Why indeed? Why?" He paused, the silence stretching between them like a taut wire, waiting for the right moment to break. Instead, he observed her intently, noting how her damp hair curled at the ends and how she wrapped her arms around herself, as if warmth was a foreign sensation to her. In a heartbeat, before reason could tether him, he leaned in, just a fraction, just enough to gauge her reaction, to see if she would retreat from the unspoken tension that hung between them. Yet she chose not to. Sophia's breath caught in her throat, her fingers gripping the fabric of her jacket as if it were her only lifeline. In a heartbeat, driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, she surged forward, closing the distance that separated them. Their lips met for the first time, a tentative caress filled with uncertainty and longing. Yet the second was inescapable. It pulsed with warmth and urgency, an unspoken tension hanging in the air, something neither of them dared to define. As they finally broke apart, a wild storm surged within Sophia's chest, her heart pounding like a drum. Nathaniel breathed out deeply, his forehead pressed gently against hers. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with a tension that hung thick in the air. Sophia swallowed hard, her hands quaking with an intensity that mirrored the storm brewing inside her. Yet she chose not to. She was unable to. The warmth of that night clung to Sophia's thoughts, wrapping around her like a soft, familiar blanket, refusing to let go for days on end. She fought against the truth, desperately trying to convince herself that the kiss was nothing more than a fleeting mistake, a moment that held no weight or significance. Yet, the way her heart thundered in her chest at the mere thought of it revealed a tale untold. And what of Nathaniel? He was no longer the same. Not in an exaggerated or theatrical manner. Yet in those quiet instances, the way his gaze melted when it met hers, the way he hesitated just a heartbeat longer during their conversations, the way his very being seemed to draw near, enveloping her in an unspoken vow. Sophia fought against the swirling thoughts in her mind, determined not to let them consume her. She knew she had to maintain her distance. But then, everything fractured into a million pieces. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, an event unfolded late one evening. Sophia had just completed the task of rolling silverware in the back, when she caught the faint sound of voices drifting from Nathaniel's office. The door stood slightly ajar, a whisper of mystery beckoning from within. She never intended to come to a halt. But then, a whisper cut through the silence, calling her name. In that moment, a profound silence enveloped her, as if the very essence of her being had paused, suspended in time. "Sophia, I'm on my way." Nathaniel stood at the edge of the world, the weight of destiny heavy on his shoulders. We both understand the real reason behind your fascination with her. It was a man's voice, smooth and dripping with smug confidence. Sophia felt a jolt of recognition surge through her as she laid eyes on it. Tristan stood at the edge of the world, the wind whipping through his hair as he gazed into the unknown. The weight of his choices hung heavy in the air, each breath a reminder of the journey that lay ahead. With determination etched on his face, he took a step forward, ready to embrace whatever fate had in store for him. The companion of Nathaniel. He strode into the restaurant with an air of authority, a polished and privileged man who seemed to command the very space around him, as if he owned the world itself. Nathaniel's voice dropped to a whisper, laced with an uncharacteristic restraint. "Tristan, please, just don't begin this now." Tristan's laughter echoed through the air, a sound that danced with mischief and delight. "Oh, come on." A wave of sympathy washes over you for her plight. She fights against the tide. She's burdened with ailing mother, a young brother who depends on her, and you, an unexpected complication in her already chaotic life. You are the affluent savior, descending from the heights of wealth to mend the shattered pieces of a broken world. Sophia's breath hitched, a sudden gasp escaping her lips. Tristan continued, his voice laced with a teasing delight. "Tell me the truth. If she weren't struggling to survive, would you even give her a second thought?" The stillness enveloped everything, a heavy blanket of quiet that seemed to stretch into eternity. "Cursed be you." Sophia stood on the precipice of hope, her heart racing as she silently pleaded for Nathaniel to refute the words that hung heavy in the air, to confront Tristan with the truth of his mistake, to reveal to him that everything unfolding between them was undeniably real. Yet, all Nathaniel could manage was a heavy sigh. The situation is tangled, a web of emotions and choices that defy simplicity. Sophia's world tilted, as if the very ground had been yanked away, leaving her suspended in a dizzying void, her chest constricted, a haze creeping into her vision. His gaze was heavy with pity. That kiss lingered in the air, his gaze piercing through her, a constant presence that felt more like a shadow than a companion. It had never truly been about her. It had all begun with a whisper of charity, a tale of mending the broken spirit of a young girl. With a swift motion, she pivoted and strode away, leaving the words unspoken and hanging in the air behind her. The following morning, Sophia was conspicuously absent from work. Or perhaps the day that follows. Nathaniel's gaze sharpened, his instincts kicking in as he sensed something was amiss. Initially, he believed she was unwell. After 3 days of unanswered calls and messages that vanished into silence, a gnawing sense of dread settled in his gut. Something was undeniably wrong. She was evading him, slipping through the shadows of their shared world. Yet, he remained oblivious to the reason behind it all. On the 5th day, the last thread of his patience unraveled. He stepped into her apartment, the air thick with anticipation. He pounded on the door with fierce determination. With a voice that held a steady resolve, yet carried a hint of warmth, Sophia pushed the door open. The stillness enveloped everything, a heavy blanket of quiet that seemed to stretch into eternity. Nathaniel let out a sharp breath, his fingers raking through his hair in a moment of frustration. "If you're angry with me, so be it. But please, unveil the reason behind it all." Silence enveloped the air, thick and heavy, as if the world held its breath. Nathaniel's jaw tightened, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "Very well." He stepped back, his voice lowering to a whisper. "Then let it be as you wish." In an instant, he turned and vanished into the shadows. Inside, Sophia leaned her forehead against the door, feeling the cool wood against her skin as a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Her fists tightened into hard, unyielding balls. Her desire to open it was overwhelming. She felt a fierce urgency to extract the truth, yet she couldn't bear the thought of uncovering more deceit. Nathaniel was not the kind of man who relinquished his grip on anything without a fight. For days, the void left by Sophia's absence festered within him, a relentless ache that refused to heal. He felt the void of her absence at the restaurant, a gaping silence that echoed in the corners of the room. He felt the ache of her absence, a hollow space where her laughter once echoed. She moved with an unspoken power, a silent resilience that drew the eye and commanded respect. She confronted him with unwavering resolve. She ignited a spark within him, awakening emotions that pierced through the emptiness of a world that so often felt devoid of meaning. And now she had vanished into thin air. Silence enveloped the moment, leaving no room for words. Silence enveloped the moment. It was a puzzle that defied logic. In that moment, Nathaniel unleashed his true talent. He uncovered the truth. In less than a day, he unraveled the mystery that had eluded him for so long. It was Claire, one of the other waitresses, who first dropped a hint, setting the stage for what was to come. Claire hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper, as she recalled the night before her departure, when she had seen the unmistakable signs of distress etched across her face. I caught a glimpse of her lingering just outside your office. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind. She may have caught a whisper of something she wasn't meant to hear. Nathaniel's stomach churned with a tumult of unease. He replayed that night in his mind, his jaw tightening as the chilling realization dawned on him. He understood precisely what Sophia must have overheard. Tristan spoke, his voice carrying weight. A wave of sympathy washes over you for her plight. She fights against the tide. With a mother battling illness and a young brother relying on her, she bears a heavy burden. And you, the affluent savior, descending from your heights to mend the chaos. Nathaniel muttered a string of curses, his frustration boiling just beneath the surface. She believed she was merely a charity case, a shadow in the world, overlooked and forgotten. That every fleeting moment they shared, the electric connection that sparked between them, the kiss that lingered in the air, had been nothing more than a facade of pity. It was a betrayal of the deepest kind. It was a stark deception, a web of lies spun so intricately that the truth seemed like a distant echo, barely audible amidst the chaos. He would not allow her to be swayed by such a notion. Sophia's hand hovered over the door, her heart racing as she caught sight of the figure waiting just beyond the threshold. In an instant, fury surged through her veins, and she nearly slammed the door shut, the tension crackling in the air. Yet, Nathaniel surged ahead with unmatched speed. Just as she reached for the door, he slipped inside, his presence enveloping the cramped room with a palpable intensity that caused Sophia's breath to catch in her throat. She stepped back, her heart racing wildly in her chest. What brings you to this place? Nathaniel's gaze pierced through the air, anchoring onto hers with an intensity that promised to unravel everything. Sophia's throat tightened as she fought to keep her composure. Everything is as it should be. Nathaniel let out a sharp breath, his head shaking in disbelief. That night, you heard Tristan, didn't you? Sophia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. With a swift motion, she averted her gaze. It holds no significance. Absolutely not. Nathaniel's voice cut through the air, raw and laced with a simmering frustration that hinted at deeper turmoil. You believe my assistance stemmed from a place of pity for you. Sophia's hands tightened into fists, a storm brewing within her. Didn't you? The stillness enveloped everything, a heavy blanket of quiet that pressed down on the world. In that moment, I realized I had never felt a shred of pity for you. His voice resonated with unwavering calmness. Not once have I ever gazed upon you and perceived weakness or helplessness. Sophia, you are the embodiment of strength like no one I've ever encountered. Her throat constricted, a sudden wave of tension washing over her. So what is the reason? Nathaniel edged forward, the tension in the air palpable. The tension in the air palpable. Because I care about you. Sophia's breath hitched in her throat. Your relentless struggle captivates me, each day a testament to your unwavering spirit, your unwavering dedication to your family, selflessly giving without a thought for reward, speaks volumes about your character. Because I see you, and my admiration for you runs deep. Sophia's chest throbbed with a deep ache, a haunting reminder of the fear that clung to her like a shadow. The weight of years spent in disappointment and solitude pressed heavily upon her. a relentless echo of survival that refused to fade. I refuse to be a burden, Nathaniel. Her voice hung in the air, a fragile whisper that seemed to dance on the edge of silence. Nathaniel's gaze deepened with an unspoken understanding. You're not, he exhaled, his fingers tangling in his hair as frustration simmered just beneath the surface. Saving you, Sophia, is not my desire. All I desire is to be by your side. I long to be by your side, not for the promise of a better life, but for the desire to experience every moment together. Sophia's resolve began to shatter. It was him, the figure that haunted her dreams, the shadow that lingered just beyond the edge of her reality. He'd always been a constant presence, quietly supportive, never imposing, never diminishing her worth. Just the sight of her. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to embrace the possibility of hope. Sophia stood frozen, the weight of Nathaniel's words lingering in the charged silence that enveloped them. Saving you, Sophia, is not what I desire. All I desire is to be by your side. Her heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears. Struck with relentless force, for an eternity, she had convinced herself that she was enough, that the world could spin on without the warmth of another soul beside her. To accept help was to admit defeat. That love, pure and unwavering, was a treasure beyond her reach, a dream she could only long for. But Nathaniel had always seen her strength, never once treating her as if she were delicate. He had always seen her as more than just an ordinary presence. He had witnessed her strength, even when she remained blind to it within herself. And now he was presenting her with a tantalizing promise, something she had never even dared to envision. A pivotal choice loomed before her, heavy with consequence and brimming with uncertainty. Nathaniel released a slow breath, his gaze fixed intently on her. He could sense the tumultuous struggle within her, the fear clawing at her resolve, the hesitation weighing heavily on her heart. Sophia, I understand that this realm, my realm, seems unlike yours. Yet none of that matters to me. My heart holds a deep concern for you. Sophia's fingers clenched at her sides, a storm brewing within her. What if I am an outsider in this world? Her voice barely broke the silence, a whisper that seemed to hang in the air, fragile and elusive. Nathaniel edged forward, his voice a whisper that hung in the air. Then we shall forge one together, side by side. Her breath caught in her throat. Bound together, there were no vows of salvation for her. There were no promises that life would transform into a smooth journey. He stood there, a steadfast presence, ready to walk beside her through the shadows and light, unwavering in his promise. Tears threatened to spill from the corners of her eyes. In the shadows of a bustling city, a name echoed through the alleys and whispered in the hearts of those who dared to listen. Nathaniel. He extended his hand toward hers, his touch unwavering, anchoring her in the moment. Sophia, the weight of solitude no longer needs to rest on your shoulders. For the very first time, she allowed herself to embrace the possibility that it could be real. The rain had finally ceased as Sophia and Nathaniel emerged into the world beyond, their footsteps echoing in the stillness that followed the storm. The air was alive with a crispness, as if the earth had shed its old skin, heralding the dawn of something extraordinary. Sophia gazed up at him, a flicker of a smile dancing on her lips. What comes next? Nathaniel let out a soft chuckle, intertwining his fingers with hers, a spark of connection igniting between them. Anything your heart desires. For the first time, a spark ignited within Sophia, banishing her fears and awakening a fierce desire for more. For she was not solitary in her journey. She would never have to be that way again. As Sophia and Nathaniel ventured onward, fingers intertwined, an undeniable truth hung in the air. Love transcended wealth, status, and the desire to mend another's life. It was a decision forged in the crucible of uncertainty, a commitment to one another that transcended fears, overshadowed the shadows of the past, and defied all odds. Sophia had always carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, convinced that the battle was hers to face in solitude. But now she realized that true strength transcended mere survival. It was the act of surrendering to love's embrace. In the blink of an eye, A simple bike crash on a rainy evening can unravel the fabric of your existence, leading you down a path you never anticipated. If this tale resonated with your soul, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heart-wrenching and unforgettable journeys. Activate notifications to ensure you never overlook a tale that has the power to transform your understanding of love, resilience, and destiny.